Hey, my name's Logan. I don't make YouTube videos. I did listen to a lot of music this year, enough to the point where I just gotta yap about it, you know? That's why we're doing top 50 albums of a year. A couple preamble sort of housekeeping things. Follow me at Rate Your Music. It's where I rated all this music. I'm a baby covered in pasta, and this is the list we're gonna be talking about today. If you wanted it in a textual format, don't want to hear my beautiful radio voice, totally get it, give it a read. Actually, the list goes to 100, so if you want my 72nd favorite album of the year, you can find it there. I'm not going to talk about 100 through 51 because that's a lot of talking. And final bit of this little housekeeping is some albums that didn't make the list proper for these reasons listed. So we're going to dive right into things, try to get through the first 20 or so at a pretty quick clip. Excuse my occasional glancing into the top left to remember where I'm at in the list because I didn't line my camera up. Alright, starting off at number 50, Glaive, bit of a mad one. Total return to form here for Glaive with the ex-hyperpop now emo rapper delivering on an excellent EP. Number 49, Adrian Lenker, Bright Future. What a devastating album. If you want to just ruin your mood to some excellent folk, can't imagine a better album to do it to. 48, and forgive my pronunciation here, but Tsushima Mirai with Bands Are a Thing. Super colorful Japanese rock record, the album cover should clue you into that. 47, we got the Maria's Submarine. If you like great grooves and chill vocals, you're gonna love this R&B project. 46, Burn with 3 R's, we're talking about Without You. 10-year hiatus, and this band sounds as great as wherever they left off with some fundamentals of shoegaze. 45, Liana Flores, Flowers of the Soul. If you like Leve, you're gonna love this artist. Bossa Nova's back, and it's back in a big way. 44, MGMT with their most mature record to date in Loss of Life. 43, Night Tapes with Assisted Memories. Just a quick one shot of that awesome moonlit bedroom indie pop sound that we've all come to love. 42, Shishimo 8. Hey Poppy. Alright, where were we? I think we were talking about this excellent Shimo Kidakai record from Shishimo. Super wholesome lead vocalist, and apparently an album that cats like, if that means anything to you, so that's gotta count for something. 41, St. Vincent, All Born Screaming. Off the wall art record. If you're into that sort of thing, you probably already know St. Vincent, but if you didn't give it a listen, you gotta check this one out. Number 40, McGee, 2-star of the Dream Police. Really interesting record that I think is going to make a lot of waves in the bedroom pop scene for years to come. Just the fact that everything on this album sounds submerged and almost underwater is so interesting in such a creative way. Number 39, JPEG Mafia, I Lay Down My Life For You. I want to call this JPEG Mafia's rock record. Not to say it's not a hip-hop record, but in terms of his back catalog, yeah, he continues to find ways to impress music nerds and listeners all alike. And maybe even his most cohesive album to date. 38, Julie, My Anti-Aircraft Friend. Debut from this band, Julie over here. Really into 90s sounds. We're talking shoegaze, talking grunge. We're talking like this band sounds straight out of that era. 37, Igloo Ghost, Title Memory EXO. I'm not one for UK drill or UK bass. Not to say I don't appreciate the genre. I'm just not super well submerged in it as this guy is on the album cover. But man, what a frenetic, chaotic listen. Could not recommend it enough. 36, Joy Again, Song and Dance. This is one I gotta pour one out for. Joy Again broke up this year, but thankfully they squeaked one last album out for fans and myself. Gotta love this thing, gotta give them their flowers for the last few moments for sticking around as a group. Thank you, Joy Again, for all the music you made in your long career, and I'm gonna appreciate this album a ton. 35, Hannah Francis, Keeper of a Shepherd. This album sounds just how the album cover looks. It's incredibly mulchy, earthen, loamy, down to earth. If any of them makes sense from a musical sense and appeals to you, you're gonna love this. 34, Matt Champion, Mika's Laundry. I had a Brockhampton phase, I'll admit it. I'm gonna say this is the best Brockhampton member solo debut to date. I don't think anyone's come close to this in terms of quality. So Matt, leading the charge for his ex-boy band. 33, Lucy Bedroque with Fête de l'Avenir. I'm sorry, I don't speak French, I apologize. Super interesting, I want to call it cloud rap predominantly, but it borrows elements of digicore and almost new rave and bend sounds in just a way that you can't fathom what's coming next on this thing. It's a really interesting EP. 32, Haley Hendrix, Seed of a Seed. Whatever I said a couple entries ago about that Hannah Francis album, just double it and give it to the next guy. That's what this album feels. Very similar in terms of consistency and quality, with just a couple stronger singles. 31, we have Mabe Frade with Sentir Que No Sabes. If you want an album that makes you seem cool in art nerd circles, this is the one. Just say I'm into avant chamber folk and people are gonna roll heads. Yeah, really interesting avant-garde listen. Couldn't recommend it enough if you just want something that's a little challenging but still not gonna sort of break your eardrum, so to speak. And we're back at number 30, Carly Cosgrove, The Cleanest of Houses Are Empty. Man, I was really hoping I could do this whole list without doing any editing. Clearly my cats had different plans for me, but it's alright, we still love them. I'm gonna call this heads and shoulders above the rest of the Midwest emo genre in terms of things that came out in 2024. Just far and away the best release. Yeah, nothing much more to say about that. 29, we got Cameron Winter with Heavy Metal. Really interesting debut from the Geese frontman here. It's different from the source material that you'd expect from a band, and it came out just late enough in the year that I could squeeze it onto the list, so I appreciate all of that. 28, we got Ben Steller, Scream from New York NY. Yeah, whatever I said about that Julie album, just double it and give it to the next guy. It's got that Gen Alpha spin of grungy and shoegazy sounds that still sound authentic enough to be playlisted on some 90s mix or whatever blend you want to put it into. Really great work. 27, we got Artemis with Doll. Easily the best K-pop record for the year, and I might even wager one of the best K-pop records of all time. This thing is uber consistent. We're talking bop after bop after bop, without the one like annoying or off-kilter track you might expect from a K-pop release. 26, we got Joey Valance and Bray with No Hands. What a fun record. This thing is off the wall, such a good time. If you like banging, trucking beats, you know, stuff that won't slow down, this is the album for you. The lyrical performances, admittedly, they leave a little bit to be desired in some cases. They won't stop talking about Omnitrixes. They have like 4 bars that mention it, but it's such a fun time. Like, you will not have more fun with an album than you will with this. And with that, we're going to try to slow things a little bit down for 25 through 1. We're in the top 25 now. Number 25, we got the new Godspeed You Black Emperor album. And it's a bit of a sour note after coming off such a fun album, if you know the backstory for this record. But man, is it a powerful piece. It's incredibly moving without having any lyrics, which is a really impressive thing to do with such grim subject matter. Gotta give props to these guys, some of the greatest in the game, to keep consistently putting out excellent records. 24, Jordy Greet, The New Sound. What a listen. If you don't know what you're getting into going into this, you are going to be floored. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a jazzy, avant Latin art prog album. It sounds like I'm just doing word soup, you know, like this thing is all over the place. It's really fun. It's really cartoonish, but in the adult cartoon kind of way. There's a bit of a sinister edge to it, if you want to call it that. But man, the production on this thing is super quality. Greep's vocals are incredibly interesting. Maybe not incredibly accessible. If you're not into their vocals, you're not gonna like this record, just being straight up with you. But if you can get past that, you're gonna love this thing. 23, No Worries, Why Lord. Yeah, Anderson .Paak's on a bit of a run, isn't he? His past couple releases have been fantastic, and this takes everything from his previous collaboration with Knowledge and just kind of doubles down on what made that record so great. All the while being a little bit more heartfelt, you know? Anderson's really getting personal on this thing, going into topics such as his divorce, but being as suave and effortless as ever with his singing, rapping, and delivery. Love this thing. I thought it was a really chill listen, something you could throw on at any time and just sort of, not necessarily wallpaper music, but great background music to do your day-to-day tasks to, live life to, enjoy. 22, Kendrick Lamar, GNX, Super Bowl halftime performer, 5X Grammy winner, slayer of Drake, the man who took so many different confluences of being the Super Bowl halftime performer, you know, dealing with his gripes with Lil Wayne that came from that, the world's biggest rap beef to date, following up who you could argue was his least well-received record. So many different things to address, and he sort of wove through them in a way that only Kendrick Lamar could have, while making his most accessible record to date. Like, he just can't keep getting away with being the greatest to ever do it, but somehow, time after time again, he just makes fun records, interesting records, thought-provoking records, and even with this being his most accessible, all of those descriptors still apply to it. You've definitely already heard this one, but I gotta sing its praises, you know. It's Kendrick Lamar. It's gonna make the year-end list. 21 with L'Empresse Pulsar. I believe that's the Empress in French. Yeah, a French house record that would give you shades of Daft Punk in terms of its production. Even its sense of collaboration. That Maggie Rogers track is the most Daft Punkian thing I've heard in a while. Not to conflate all French house with Daft Punk stylings. Maybe it's just the album art that's doing it to me. This thing is bops, you know, through and through. The grooves on this thing are immaculate. It's incredibly danceable, and I'm very sad to see that the lead singer has recently left the band. I hope that she and the band are able to rebound from that situation. Yeah, gonna leave it at that for number 21. Number 20, we got Bonnie Light Horseman, Keep Me on Your Mind /CU3. Really great double LP here of just grassroots Americana and folk. This thing is like a cozy campfire. It's like singing with your friends as the bar is closing. It's very Dust Bowl. It's very earnest. It's very lively. Maybe a tad long for my taste. There's 1 or 2 tracks that you could cut off, remove some bloat, and it would be honestly a perfect record. This thing is incredibly heartfelt, it's touching. The vocal performances on this are great. The instrumentation is sparse, but it's everything it needs to be. I couldn't say enough good things about it, and it sounds excellent on vinyl. Just pick that up. Love this record. Loves how it sounds. Love everything about it. Number 19, Meaningful Stone, Angel Interview. Yeah, I was not familiar with Angel Stone before seeing this thing pop up at the very end of the year, but to say I was impressed would be an understatement, This thing is a little bit of everything. You like shoegaze, you like dream pop, you like singer-songwriter, you like indie folk. It's everything, It's the classic sort of younger person's game approach to songwriting. Just do it all, and she did it all. The sequencing of this thing is really impressive, how it can go from something so loud to so quiet to so produced to so underwritten, and all seem sort of cohesive still. I really love this record. I especially love her debut record that this record helped me discover. Yeah, she's just a really interesting voice, someone who's fearless, ready to tackle anything, and her music really reflects that. Just a super quality, consistent listen. Number 18, Billie Eilish, Hit Me Hard and Soft. Talk about Grammy snubs, man. Billie gave us her best record to date. It's fantastic, It's got some of the darkness that her debut does, with some of the pop appeal that her second record does. There's so many great tracks on this thing. I think the American listening public did Lunch a huge disservice by not making that a bigger single. And then they made up for it with Birds of a Feather, don't get me wrong, but even the deep cuts on this thing, right? It's hard to call anything Billie Eilish makes a deep cut, but the deeper album listings on this, they're all great, She keeps the sinister edge while being playful, but she's also such a serious writer, She's clearly an auteur. She cares a lot about her craft. For production, her writing style, especially her vocal performances, hell of a vocalist. They all have, she's found her concoction, She has her secret recipe. It works. It's great. She's continuing to mature that sound too, and it just gets better and better. She's probably the best doing it, and all the pop girlies out there, step up your game if you want to challenge Billie for the throne. Still doing it at a high level, still gotta love it. 17, Vince Staples, Dark Times. Another album where you want to say they're firing at all cylinders, the best of her discography. Vince is getting really serious, and that's not to say he hasn't done that before, but I don't know if it's been that dark, and not in like a posturing sort of aggressive way, but in like a self-inward reflective way, it's internally dark, it's dark thoughts, it's dark times. There's so many catchy songs on here. I would really like to highlight Black and Blue, Justin, All My Dead Homies. Like, there's so many like little refrains and moments and cadences of Vince's delivery that I find delicious on this thing. You could just come back to this thing time and time again. There's something new to appreciate. He's a tough guy, but he's got a heart too, and he's really bearing that on this record. So yeah, shout out to Vince for a great album. Number 16, a tiny little EP, self-titled, I Will Be Pretty When I Die. And this thing's a quick shot. It's like 15 minutes, but it's an incredibly impactful 15 minutes. I guess I would call it slowcore. It's almost an album I don't want to talk too much about. Not that albums can have spoilers, so it's weird to say it. I don't want to spoil the album, but the way this thing progresses is so interesting. From going so quiet and understated, underwritten into this explosive, bombastic finale. It's just really powerful. Every choice on this was, I think it relates to a cycle of life and death is really what obviously this project in its title is going for, but to musically convey that in the way they did is just wow. It's something different. It's a really quick listen. You gotta give this one a shot. It's not gonna be any time out of your day, and you're gonna love it. I guarantee it. Number 15, Nala Cinefro. That's the first time I'm saying that out loud. Endlessness. Really interesting space jazz album. It almost reminds me of the Minecraft Volume Alpha soundtrack, and just it evokes such a nostalgic feeling in you. The first time you put it on is the 100th time you put it on. The 100th time you put it on is the 1000th time you put it on. It's an album that you could just play and loop forever and ever. It's a continuum, and it sounds like that, and it's excellent. Man, to be so synth-driven as a jazz album is really interesting, but this thing pulls it off seamlessly. It really is space jazz, It's not quite like what you would imagine from a lay listener. If you're not a jazz head, someone says the word jazz, you're not going to expect this thing. But it's so chill. It's an album that I have to have on vinyl. It just sets the sort of mood that is indescribably beautiful, It's vintage, it's nostalgic, it's everything you could ever want out of a jazz record. And yeah, it's easily a top 15 record from the year. Number 14, Vampire Weekend with Only God Was Above Us. This album is so good. It makes me wonder what I liked about previous Vampire Weekend albums. And that's not to say they haven't made good work in the past, but this is just everything Vampire Weekend does well turned to 11. The like baroque, preppy angle they always have is here, but it's 10x, you know? The instrumentation on this thing is beautiful. Like if you want to talk about the piano playing on stuff like Ice Cream Piano or Connect, or the riffs that bend and careen all over Gen X Cops, like they were cracked out in the studio on this one, man. They were playing their hearts out, and it shows. It is such a high quality project. Like to me, this was my barrier for a long while. Like, was it great from a year or was it just good from a year? You know, like it really set the bar because it came out so early. And man, they got artsy with it in a way that you would expect them to, but in a way that really delivered and past albums have not. So shout out Ezra, shout out the gang for our 14th best album of the year. That gets us to our number 13, Paranol Sky 100. An album, again, that looks just how the album cover sounds. It's like a sunset fading on a nostalgic moment in your life. It's really powerful music. I would even, as a genre, call it world appreciation music, where you put this album on, you walk around, you know, you're driving to work with this thing on, and you see a bushy tree in the distance, and you look at it in a way you've never looked at that tree on your drive to work that you do 5 times a week before. It changes the way you perceive the world around you. It makes you appreciate the little things, like your footprints in the snow, or the way the wind ripples on water, you know, creating waves. You just look around at you, you listen to this album, you don't quite understand it because you don't speak the language, but the walls of noise wash over you. They're loud, don't get me wrong, but they're impactful because of this. They really punch you in the heart, and so to speak. They strike you down and they make you listen and feel the music, you know. Not a forceful way, but a potent way, I think is a good way of putting it. Really beautiful record. I might call it his best work, you know. Pyramidal's a really consistent artist, so that's pretty high praise. But with that, we're getting into the top 12, and you say, what's so special about the top 12? These are like really the albums of the year that I had tough time rounding out the top 10, so sort of an honorable mention for 12 and 11 here. But we have number 12, Death's Dynamic Shroud and Galen Tipton, You Like Music. Insane album. Incredibly phonetic. I guess I would call it Jersey Club. It borrows from elements of hyperpop as well as industrial electronic music as well. Yeah, this thing is so fast paced. It is frantic. It is like a panic attack almost. I wouldn't be surprised if every song on this thing was 300 BPM, you know? It just goes and goes and goes, but it is so fun. Like, it is a rancorous time. Like, you couldn't dance to it probably. You would die. You would have muscle atrophy after song 2. It goes so hard, but you could bang your head to it, that's for sure. It will sound great in your car speakers or some loud headphones. Like, this thing is nuts. There's no other way to describe it. I know that's pretty simple, but it's just nuts, and it's something you need sometimes. It's just to let loose to something insane, something freaky, something psycho. And it does answer the question. I do like music, that's for sure. Which leads me to my number 11. Haven't pronounced this one either. Rubenushi Meek Gazer 2024. I had no plans of a Hatsune Miku Vocaloid Shoegaze album being fringe top 10 for me for 2024, but this thing is that good. Like, I can't believe it. The riffs on this thing are chunky, they're heavy, they're oppressive. It's one of the best shoegaze albums I've ever heard, as someone who's dabbled in that genre quite frequently over the past half decade or so. Really touching, you know, really beautiful. It's concise, but it's incredibly moving. The production on this thing just has no business going that hard. It's on the noisier end for shoegaze, but man, what a record. Hatsune Miku, she can't keep getting away with making beautiful shoegaze records. And with that, we're hitting top 10. At my number 10, MJ Lenderman, Manning Fireworks. I got so much to say about this album. This is what I hope country can be, specifically pop country. I'm not a bro country guy, I'm not a stadium country guy. Slacker rock, I can get behind that. The writing style of MJ Lenderman is just something to gush over. He has such a plain poetry, you know, in a way that could only be written in a rural or pastoral sense. Like, he can describe like a bucolic scene in a way that no other man can. It's clever, it's witty, it's charming, it's humorous, and it's also kind of depressing. Just his little aphorisms, or his MJ Lenderisms, lead themselves to just beautiful statements, like a half-mast McDonald flag, docking your boat at the Himbo Dome, really gutting performances too on this thing. You Don't Know the Shape I'm In, where he kind of just gives up on the second half of the song and lets the clarinet sing its heart out. Having his ex, who's also in the band with, do the outro vocals on She's Leaving You is just a devastating choice. There's so much about this album that's pathetic, but in a way you root for. I don't know how you pull that off, and I don't know how you don't love this record. There's an occasional clunk, don't get me wrong. His writing style does lead to some things that you would consider some swings and some misses, but he's always going for the fence. There's just so much to love about this record, and I could not get enough of it throughout the year. I tried to fight its placement for those flaws in the top 10, I just couldn't do it. Brings us to number 9, Sarah Kinsley, Escaper. Really last minute addition for me. I got to this thing very late in the year, but in terms of art pop records, this thing struck a chord with me. It's not quite as out there as art pop would make you lend to think, but it does borrow from some of the greats like Kate Bush, Grimes, artists like that, in terms of its just pounding synthesizers and beautifully put together vocal arrangements. This girl could sing. Very interestingly, she uses contact mics for a lot of her vocal performances, and that different sort of ephemeral quality really shows in her performances on this thing. It just sounds so otherworldly, like she's really created her own little world that this album lives in, and her vocals are like angelically soaring above all of that. It's just a beautiful listen, and the bops on this thing, man, ever since I heard Sublime, I could not get that song out of my head. I was playing it 4, 5, 6 times in a row. Just, man, the chorus on that. So many other songs too, Nights. There's great pop records. Man, I can't believe this album's not bigger. This should be on radio. It's just already enough where it'd be like high critical acclaim, high public acclaim. Everyone would love this. More people should listen to this. You should listen to this. Which gets us to number 8, Clairo, Charm, another pop record that needs more love. She should just do sunshine pop all the time. Why is she not born in the 70s? Why has this music not existed all my life? Songs like Sexy for Someone, Add Up My Love, they've been looping in my head all year. It's crazy how catchy these songs are. There's so many beautiful flourishes of woodwinds on this thing. Even the sounds of her giggling in the studio in the background just paint such a warm hug of a record. And the subject matter doesn't even necessarily reflect that. It's just her vocal performances are so strong. She's really matured in her voice both as a vocalist and a songwriter. Clairo, you just crushed this thing, I really love some of her past albums, but nothing quite stands up to this one. Whoever the producer was, the name is not coming to the top of my mind right now. You need to work with him more, Clairo. This thing was fantastic. I'm glad Juno was a hit. I hope you keep getting more hits, and there will be no Clairo shade coming from me. Number 7, The Help with 2 L's, her album, 2 L's. Wow, this thing knocked me on my ass. Just an incredible new rave record. I had no expectations going into this. I wasn't familiar with the group, but the way they just take every song and truly do this track here, Caustic, and make it such a caustic, abrasive sound, but it's still so catchy and sticky. The hooks on this thing are fantastic, like Stun, Go Somewhere. The vocal performances, they're not like amazing vocalists, but they're catchy, they're sticky in a way that just, it won't leave your brain, man. It's such a fun record. Not quite hyper pop, but it has the same spirit, if that makes any sense. The energy of like youthful relentless to like just make something perfect, make something so fun, something you can get up and dance to, something abrasive, something uniquely this new generation of musicians. I love this thing. It might be a little challenging if this isn't your usual forte of genres, but you gotta give it a listen. It is fantastic. Which gets us to number 6, Joshua Chukima Crampton, Estrella por Estrella. This is my diamond in the rough. You don't know this record. It is a very obscure, drumless, drony noise rock record from the Spanish musician that I don't know how I found, but I love it. The way that guitars are used on this thing is nothing short of magical. They careen and stretch and squash and distort in such interesting ways. It can be brutal at times, it can be stunning at times. Like, it can be like a submarine boat ride, or it could be like crashing back to earth from the, drop pod you came from. It is a crazy record. It's pretty quick too, which is surprising. And the fact that it's drumless, that it's relying solely on its masterful deployment of guitars is just, it's otherworldly. I don't know how he put this thing together. It's truly someone who's at the top of their craft in terms of instrumentation. The way he gets guitars to emote is something that only the greats could do, and I mean that wholeheartedly. When you think of classic rock and solos, this whole thing is just a 30-minute experimental classic rock solo in a sense, in the way the guitar is speaking to you directly. Great record, a record that deserves a ton more credit, a ton more appreciation, but just barely not top 5. And as we get into the top 5 here, Ka, The Thief Next to Jesus. A little weird now noticing that it's 2 drumless albums back to back at 5 and 6 here. But what a record. Easily far and away the best rap album of the year. Nothing came quite close. And pretty tragic to hear the news of Ka's passing right after this record. But what an album to go off on. Really haunting. Beautiful record he put together here. Just a very thoughtful exploration of what it means to be, black and experiencing religion and faith in modern day America. The way he pulls apart that topic too is not necessarily tragic, but it's immensely thoughtful. Songs like Collection Plate, for example, just recontextualizing the visual of a collection plate and how that money that goes to serve the institution of a church or a religious organization could be so much better served by just being put in the hands of the people that need it. In many cases. And then a song like Beautiful, the way that the gospel sample quoting the word beautiful over and over is recontextualized through his lyricism, and his delivery of the lines preceding and following it is just it's masterful, there's no other way to put it. And again, a really thoughtful record, clearly an auteur, it's the sort of record that only like a hip-hop great would make, in terms of dedication to craft, sort of a meticulous focus on what needs to be done to deliver the message exactly how you envisioned it. And Ka did all of that and more. It's a haunting album, but it's a gorgeous album. Obviously, very sad to learn the news of his passing. I wish I knew about him sooner so I could have appreciated him while he was alive. But I will do more than that and then some in his passing. Thank you, Ka, for everything you ever did for the music world. I'm going to continue to appreciate this album and appreciate you. So, moving on to a less somber note for number 4, we're going to have Ali X, Girl with No Face. If you want to talk about a record that is all hits, that is Ali X's Girl with No Face. Actually, my album of the year to start off the year for the first couple of months. In terms of track list, I can't think of a pop album in recent memory that is just memorable song after hit, after bop, after banger. Like, every song on this is beautifully performed. First of all, Ali is singing her guts out on this. Her vocals are phenomenal. She's hitting the most powerful high notes. She's using all of her range. She's using all the melodies in her bags of tricks. And production on this thing is through and through new wave. Like, if you want to talk about dedication to a previous sound in a way that maybe the Claro album, for instance, is so 70s, this thing is breathing and dripping 80s. Like, it is a pastiche done to 11. I know that's the trend in popular music. You take a previous genre like disco, you flip it, you get a big hit out of it. This thing is embodying what it meant to be, a new wave artist in the 80s. She is so dedicated to her craft on that. And it shares some of that sort of sinister feeling, I guess, that a lot of the synths of new wave acts sort of lend themselves to. This thing's dark, but in a off-ball, sort of smiling, kooky, friendly way, if that makes any sense. Is it the album cover? Is it production? Is it her quirky lyricism or tongue-in-cheek lines? It's a little bit of all of that, and it just yields the most fantastic listening of track after track. Like, there's quotables for days on this thing. Off with Her Tits, Truly Dreams, Galena, Weird World. Every song on this is memorable, and that really is the hallmark of not just a great album, but a fantastic album. So, not enough good things to say about Ali X. She's an artist I've been tangentially aware of, but never to this degree, and I've been missing out. I'm a fan for life now after this one, and will continue to check out what she does next, because wow, what a project. But not quite a top 3 project. Which gets us to our podium, our top 3, our bronze piece, our minerals, everything you want to call it. At number 3, we got Wikipedia for the Rest of Your Life. An album that I didn't even really like at first, to be honest. First time I heard it, I didn't get it. It just didn't click with me. But I couldn't stop listening. The more I listened, I kept listening. I kept listening and being like, why don't I like it? I kind of like it. I really like this. This is great. This is fantastic. Which makes sense. This is something that, at least for my personal taste, is really up my alley. I love underscores, I love break-ins, I love this hyper pop into I'm gonna make a really excellent noise pop punk shoegazy influenced album pipeline. Wikipedia, I guess, is the next in a long line of generations doing such a feat. And man, knocked it out of the park again. We keep saying that for a lot of these albums here, but it's true. In terms of melodies, this thing is just dripping them, maybe the vocals aren't all the way there just because they're mixed so much further back than some of the other albums on this list. But in terms of just like quotable, catchy songs like Garden, beautiful sing-songy melody, it almost sounds like a school chant. Room for One, Cardboard Boxes. especially guitar-driven melodies too. His singing complemented with the brashness of these guitars. It's not necessarily punkish. It's almost like a sad punk, you know. Like this album is a little defeated, but it still makes your heart soar. Like you're gonna listen to this and your spirit's gonna take off like a rocket on this album cover. It's really transcendent. Especially going back to Wikipedia's back catalog. Like he was making, you know, like digichord, cloud rap, a really like hyper rap angle of hyper pop. So to come from there to now, not to say that some of his past work doesn't hold up, but what a transformation. I can't wait to see what he does next if he continues to pursue his style, because fantastic album, third best of the year, but not number 2, because that would be Jessica Pratt here in the pitch. An album that I am so upset I can't give a number 1 spot, because most any other year, man, it would be number 1 easily in a landslide. This thing is fantastic. It is timeless. It is written between space and time. Like, this album could have been from the 20s, the 2020s, or the 3020s. It's crazy. This thing is anything you need it to be. You're in a happy mood, a calm mood, a chill mood, a sad mood, a dour mood, a downcast mood, you know. You just want something that sounds like it would soundtrack with Backrooms. You want something kind of liminal. This album can do any of that. It can be anything you want it to be. I think I described it as the Velvet Underground and Nico, but if you got one of those Captain Crunch cereal boxes that was Oops All Nico, because that's what this album is, you know. It's that beautiful, sultry, one-of-a-kind voice singing to you with poetic lyricism delivered in just a inflection, intonations that are so omni-emotional, if that makes any sense. Like, anything you need to project on this album to be, it's gonna give back to you in spades. I can't describe another album, honestly, that quite has that effect for me, of just like, anytime, any mood, any vibe, it's good, it's great, it's exactly what I need it to be. Again, another artist where I really was not familiar with the back catalog, but she's just a one-of-a-kind voice, man. You really, if you're into anything of a singer-songwriter, bossa nova lane, you gotta give this thing a listen, because it's generational. I'll say it. Like, she's a writer, she's a singer, she knows how to do everything and then some. Fantastic record. I wish I could sing its praises better than I already have. I wish it could be my number 1, but it can't be, because the second the number 1 album came out, I already knew it was album of the year. It's one of the best albums I've ever heard. You know it, you love it. It's Magdalena Bay, Imaginal Disc. No surprises this year, no shockers. As a longtime maghead, as someone who's been listening since the days of Neon and their Redbone cover, which is how I found them, by being a Childish Gambino fanboy, to come all the way from such humble beginnings of EP after EP to a fantastic debut album, Another 10, and to great EPs, into Top Dog, into so much great, to just continue to be excellent, so above the rest of the game in terms of indie pop. It's Imaginal Disc. Man, what more can you say about this album? Every track on this thing is phenomenal. The way they all bleed into each other is such an experience. This thing really is, it's a trip. It's an astral projection, you know. It's a space odyssey. It's so much adventure, you know. There's so many risks taken on this thing, but not a single one misses. There's no duds on this thing. Yeah, you can maybe argue that like an interlude or 2 wasn't necessary, but it doesn't hurt the vibe. It doesn't hurt the flow. There's nothing about this album that has any negative impact whatsoever. And wow, in a career that has yielded so many great singles, like we're talking anything off of Mercurial World, you know, the Night Tapes, this recent EP, Volume 3. You could argue probably 10 of these tracks are top 5 all-time of your discography, which is nuts. Whatever album does that, where you drop the album and you're like, yeah, that's all their best songs ever. Even the greatest of the greats, you know, they spread like 2 to 3 all-time singles across like their whole discography per album. This album just dropped everything on the table and was like, do you want our best, you know, like bedroom R&B cut? You can have it. You want our best industrial EDM track? You can have it. You want our best prog rock breakdown? Take that too. You want a song that sounds like it's the backing track for a cologne commercial? We're gonna make it sound like fire. Do you want just a celebratory track that is doing a victory lap by the time this album ends because it's so good it deserves it? Yeah, we're gonna pull that off too, just because we're so confident that we've made one of the best listening experiences of all time. Man, getting into individual tracks, Death and Romance, I nearly tear up every time I hear that bridge. The lyricism is definitely plain, but it's just so evocative and so universally true to conflate the sort of never-endingness of the way you love someone and the way you die. They're both sort of finalities in that sense, and that comparison is it's blunt, but it's deep in an awkward sense. That's my floor. Gosh, the guitar playing on that, the breakdowns, the music videos for all of these tracks too. They have such a pronounced vision for what they want to be. Even songs like Fear and Sex, it's a deep cut and it could easily be a radio single. I haven't heard something so smooth and sort of imminent and brooding like what a Doja Cat R&B track would dream to be. And that's no shade against a Doja Cat of a world. Image, man, like they're using these songs in Apple commercials and it sounds like, not like an Apple commercial song. It just sounds really cool. Like maybe one of her best dance tracks to date. The vocals on Vampire in a Quarter. Oh my god, Miko. First of all, what are you talking about? That goes true for a lot of songs on this album. But more importantly, where did you learn how to sing like that? There is so much to love about this record. The album art is already iconic. And in terms of cultural impact, obviously Brett Summer really took over the year, but a lot of people were calling for Mag Autumn, at least in my circles. To dethrone such a cultural movement just by the sheer excellence of your album, that really is an impressive feat. And I'm starting to run out of words to say. I love this album so much. It means so much to me. I'm actually able to see them in tour this year, 2025, which I've been looking forward to for so long. As a longtime fan of this group, it's very special and very beautiful for me to see them get their flowers. They're truly hard workers. It's something they totally deserve, and they delivered on all fronts with this album. Just incredibly passionate, both my take on this as well as the performance they put into this thing. And I think that's where we're gonna leave it. Yeah. So thank you for sitting through with me on the top 2024 albums. I know not necessarily the most professionally made music video. My mic's bobbing around. I had to cut a couple times for a couple of reasons. I'm dipping my toes into this. I'm seeing if I like it, if I'll do some more, because I'm always cooking up some ideas, and I'm a certified yapper. I got a lot to talk about, especially when it comes to music. So drop a comment if you have any agreements, disagreements. I just want to talk about some of my takes or things I missed, albums I need to listen to. I'm always looking for more to listen to. Drop a follow on Rate Your Music, and say something nice about my cat Poppy who crafted the recording. Other than that, take it easy. Bye.